Where does Gareth see Bitcoin headed? You know, you've taken so much heat from the Bitcoin cyber hornets about your previous very bearish forecast for Bitcoin. On that note, I want to also get your thoughts on Peter Thiel, long time, I'm all in Bitcoin guy, has just come out saying he doesn't see much left to run in the Bitcoin price, saying, you know, what now that the ETFs are, and he doesn't see what other buyers would emerge, saying this is pretty much the top we're going to get here for Bitcoin. Kind of surprised by his comments there. I'm not saying he was an uber bull like a Michael Saylor, but almost there. So for him to say that, your thoughts on his comments, and then we'll get your reading of the chart here.
Now, guess who keeps his eye on us? The author of best-selling book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And we want to take this opportunity and thank all the people who trusted us, and we read every comment. And the best part, it's free. Subscribing now means you will get all new information for free. Don't just follow the trends, stay ahead of them. Subscribe to Bitcoin Zealot today and enjoy the new edge. Let's join Gareth in this video about Bitcoin and more.
Yeah, so I'm assuming he means more shorter term, and I agree with him in the short term. And my thesis, again, so I called the top at 69,000 for a drop to 20,000. And then, you know, what I said was that if we see a stock market collapse, then we would see Bitcoin go as low as 10. That obviously didn't happen. The stock market just went to new all-time highs. Bitcoin went on a beautiful bull run. But one of the things that we do see now is more and more kind of breadth within the stock market getting negative. And what I mean by that is the NVIDIAs, the Microsofts, the Apples, they're literally carrying the entire stock market up right now. Everything else, the advanced decline line is hugely negative. We're seeing negative divergences everywhere. Most other stocks are actually trading lower versus that magnificent 6 or 7. And so what that's telling me is that the stock market is getting ready to have a correction here. And in that case, I think there is pressure on Bitcoin. And I think that's what Peter Thiel was saying as well, is that if you don't have more money being created because the stock market is going up, you're likely going to see the stock market fall, and that will take Bitcoin down. And I agree, because if you're looking at the ETF side of things, if you get the stock market to fall, those buyers that would buy the ETF will probably shy away from buying the ETF because they're stock investors generally. And that becomes an issue for Bitcoin continued upside. So I'm in the camp that we probably head down to 50,000. 50,000 is a massive support. It's actually where the spot ETF surge occurred before the last 20% correction. Mm-hmm. So that makes a lot of sense. On a chart, I can actually put a trend line in right here, and we can see. So this would be that target zone right down here. We can see that it is off of its recent highs, consolidating in this wedge. I would expect this wedge to break down on the charts and head down. And I will just leave you with this, is that I don't see Bitcoin ever going back to 15 or even 10,000. But if the stock market has the type of correction of 30, 40% that I do worry about, I do think Bitcoin could get as low as 30,000. But again, I would be a buyer starting at 50 all the way down to 30, essentially.
Oh, okay. And I want to get to your huge call that you have for NVIDIA. But before that, let's just bring up Solana. I'm just curious whether you're bullish Solana, when and if an ETF comes, what that could do to it. But what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, so Solana is a tricky one, right? We've made lower highs here recently. We have a flat bottom right here. And so I would just say this: as long as Solana holds this $120 level, and you can see again, it was the high here, it hit it here, and then it broke out, retraced, and retraced. It's held. So we know based on technical analysis that this is a huge level. As long as you hold 120, I think you remain neutral to bullish on it, looking for that further upside. But if 120 goes, this is going below 100, and you got to step aside and let it flush back down. So again, I would kind of just go with the same idea that, you know, Ethereum had the ETF news, it didn't do a whole lot. And I do worry that the hype on these ETFs is fading a little bit. And so even with a Solana ETF, I'm not convinced that it would be a game changer in the short term, maybe in the long term, but not in the short term. And again, if the stock market comes in hard, Solana will go down probably even more than Bitcoin.
Bitcoin's price has retraced recent gains, trading at $61,000 on July 3 following a worsened U.S. inflation outlook. The market remains tense as the Federal Reserve indicates caution on rate cuts. Bitcoin's price dropped to $60,800 on July 3 after hitting local lows of $60,561. This decline erased the gains made over the weekend, as indicated by data from Cointelegraph Markets Pro and TradingView. Jerome Powell, chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve, suggested that more evidence is needed to justify lowering interest rates. This cautious stance dampened market optimism, with the likelihood of a September rate cut dropping to around 65%, according to CME Group's FedWatch tool. The BTC/UST pair revisited familiar lows, frustrating market participants. Analysts and traders noted a pattern of manipulatory liquidity moves on exchanges, adding and removing resistance through order spoofing. Popular trader Skew observed significant spot demand on Binance around the $60,000 level. Bitcoin also filled the latest gap in CME futures, a typical occurrence following weekend trading. Charles Edwards, founder of Capriole Investments, expressed concern over the market's failure to account for ongoing minor capitulation. He suggested that Bitcoin might either consolidate between $60,000 and $70,000 per up to 2 months, or undergo a significant correction to address on-chain market imbalances.
The dollar has remained very strong. If we look back in the January or December of 2023 period, we've actually seen the dollar trending higher for this entire year. And the key here is just understanding that the US dollar is versus all the other currencies, right? It's a basket of currencies, including the euro, including the yen. And so the dollar is staying strong relative to those currencies because those governments and those Federal Reserve banks, they're all already starting to cut rates. And we've seen Canada do it. We've seen the European Union start to do it. And that, again, weakens their currencies, and therefore the dollar strengthens in response. So, I think there's a big misconception here that the dollar staying strong means U.S. citizens have more buying power. It doesn't mean that. It essentially just means versus other currencies, our currency is still kind of the cleanest shirt in a dirty laundry basket, if you will. Now, looking at the chart, what I'm seeing here is that we are kind of getting sandwiched between a resistance line as well as a support line. And I do think the jobs data this week will be instrumental in either this chart breaking up, the dollar breaking out with stronger data, or if it's a little bit weaker on the jobs front this week, we might actually see it turn back down as expectations for the Fed to kind of catch up to the other central banks with cutting rates starts to kind of jump a little bit.
Right. And talk to me, if you don't mind, bringing up dollar yen, because like I said, it broke out above its previous high until, the BOJ intervened and pushed it down.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this relationship between U.S., Japan, and why the U.S. basically is telling Japan, hey, we don't want you to play in this currency war here.
Yeah, and I think that's such a big event here. So we saw the Japanese central bank intervene right here on the chart. It was looking to pop out of what we will call a channel, parallel lines that's keeping the dollar yen within this zone. And they came right in and just slammed it back down. The problem is it didn't last. And now all of a sudden we find ourselves at new recent highs with a potential upside target of this 163 to 164 level. And the kicker here is, and what most people don't understand, this is a chart that you're not hearing about on CNBC or Bloomberg very often, but the reason why it's such a big deal is, and the U.S. just came out, I think it was last week, and said, we're going to put Japan on a list of potential currency manipulators. And the reason why it's such a big deal to the U.S. is because for the Japanese central bank to strengthen their currency, they must dump U.S. dollars and U.S. debt on the open market. And when you do that, you cause issues over here, right? I mean, everything in this world is so interconnected right now, where Japan has 250 debt to GDP, and they're the biggest holder of U.S. debt. So they start dumping that. And what ends up happening? Interest rates here get artificially pushed up because of that excess supply on the market. Well, if the Fed is trying to keep interest rates in this zone or even drop them, let's say the U.S. economy starts weakening and they start dumping U.S. debt, it actually could take control away from the Federal Reserve in terms of monetary policy. And that's where things get really messy if that does happen.
Sony Group is venturing into the cryptocurrency trading market by revamping its SBLOX subsidiary, formerly known as Amber Group. The renewed Whalefin exchange will feature a new app, improved functions, and support for more cryptocurrency assets. Sony Group, through its subsidiary SBLOX, formerly Amber Group, is entering the cryptocurrency trading business. SBLOX, acquired by QuedaWeb, a Sony Group subsidiary, will relaunch the Whalefin exchange. This move marks Sony's significant step into the crypto market, following its acquisition in August 2023. The revamped Whalefin exchange will feature a redesigned user interface, UI, and a new app, aiming to provide an easier and more user-friendly service. These changes are part of Sony's efforts to enhance the trading experience for its customers. After the revamp, Wealthfin plans to support a wider array of cryptocurrencies and improve its overall functionality. This expansion is expected to attract more users and provide a comprehensive trading platform. Sota Watanabe, CEO of Startail Labs, revealed that an external director from Startail would lead the exchange at Sony. In September, Sony Network Communications announced a joint initiative with Startail Labs to create a blockchain for Sony's Web3 strategy. This partnership aims to offer services across various Sony Group sectors, including gaming, music, entertainment, and financial services. If you've been with us so far, a big thank you. Don't forget to subscribe for free to Bitcoin Zella for your daily news. The link is waiting below. That's all for today's crypto news. Stick around for more updates, insights, and analysis on cryptocurrencies. Share your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more exciting content.